Across time, gold has never been just a metal. It's been memory, ritual, power. But what happens when gold is shaped not to be worn, but to speak? In tombs, temples, and lost cities, lie objects so precise, so strange, that they don't just shine, they question. These are not the treasures of kings. These are relics of mystery. Today, we explore 7 ancient artifacts forged in gold, each whispering a story that science still can't explain. The Talima gold airplanes. High in the mountains of Colombia, where the rivers curve like ancient veins and the jungle presses in from every side, gold once flowed not just in the rivers, but through the hands of a civilization long vanished. Among the many treasures left behind by the Talima culture, one group of objects stands apart. They're small, no longer than a finger, but they defy explanation. They look like airplanes. Crafted entirely from gold using the lost wax technique, these objects, now known as the Talima gold airplanes or pre-Columbian gold flyers, have fascinated archaeologists, engineers, and theorists for decades. At first glance, they might resemble stylized fish or birds. But the longer you look, the harder that is to believe. They have delta-shaped wings, stabilizing fins, upright tails, even what appears to be a cockpit. Some sit flat on their bellies like modern fighter jets. Others feature right angles and symmetry rarely found in natural forms. And perhaps most curiously of all, some of these forms are aerodynamically sound. The Talima people created these objects over 1,000 years ago, long before any known concept of flight. In their time, gold was not currency, it was sacred. These weren't toys or trinkets. They were offerings found in tombs, rivers, and sacred sites. But what exactly were they meant to represent? Mainstream archaeologists say the forms are stylized animals, maybe insects or bats, exaggerated by artistic expression. Birds rendered in metal, nothing more. But others aren't so sure. In the 1990s, a team of aviation enthusiasts built scale models of the Talima flyers, adding engines and adjusting only for size and weight. To their surprise, several flew with remarkable stability. That test alone reignited a global fascination. Were these just coincidence? Or were the Talima capturing something they saw, or imagined, that resembled powered flight? Alternative theorists point to myths of sky gods, ancient visitors, or memories passed down from a forgotten age. They suggest that these gold objects might reflect not fantasy, but observation, a message, a memory, or perhaps a warning. Of course, there's no concrete evidence that the Talima had any contact with flight, or anything remotely close to it. But that's what makes these tiny artifacts so captivating. Their size is humble. Their mystery is not. In museums, they rest quietly in glass cases, just a few inches long. But in those curves and angles lies a question that refuses to go away. Were they birds? Or were they a glimpse of something that soared and vanished long before history began recording? The golden hats. Across the quiet fields of Germany and France, long before stone castles and cathedrals rose into the sky, there were other monuments, ones that didn't tower over the land, but shimmered quietly beneath it. Buried for over 3,000 years, these golden objects were never meant to last forever. And yet, they did. They are called the Golden Hats of Bronze Age Europe, thin, conical headpieces made entirely of gold. To date, only 4 have ever been found. All were discovered separately over the course of more than a century, in places far apart, southern Germany, western France, Switzerland. Yet they share such a precise design, such intricate detail, that it's clear they come from the same cultural lineage. And their purpose remains one of archaeology's quiet enigmas. Each hat is made of a single sheet of gold, hammered thin and shaped into a cone up to 30 inches tall. They were then embossed with thousands of repeating symbols, circles, discs, zigzags, meticulously punched into the surface. The decoration isn't random. It follows rows, sequences, rhythms. It feels deliberate. At first, scholars believed they were ceremonial crowns, possibly worn by high priests or tribal leaders. Their size and delicacy suggest they weren't made for protection or daily use. But the deeper question is, what do those symbols mean? In the early 2000s, researchers proposed a radical idea. That the golden hats were not just decoration, but calendrical devices. That those endless rows of symbols could be used to track lunar cycles, solstices, and solar years, maybe even predict eclipses. According to this theory, the hats served as both sacred object and scientific tool. a wearable calendar encoded in gold. If true, this would mean that their makers, living in the heart of Europe during the Late Bronze Age, around 1000 BC, had a far more advanced understanding of astronomy than we previously believed. But there's a problem. We don't know who made them. The culture that produced these objects left no written language. No name. No legends. Just the hats. And the silence they carried underground for 3 millennia. Some believe the hats were meant to conceal as much as they revealed, that their knowledge was reserved for a priestly class, perhaps passed only from one bearer to the next. Others wonder if they were a kind of ancient code we've only just begun to decipher. Today, the golden hats sit behind glass in European museums. Most visitors admire the shine, but few realize they might be looking at the earliest portable scientific instruments in human history, rendered not in stone or clay, but in gold. What message did they carry? What knowledge did they hold? And why were they buried so carefully, so far from one another, as if to scatter the truth across time? The Lambbeek gold mask. In the coastal deserts of northern Peru, the wind moves across the dunes like breath from another world. Beneath the dry earth lie tombs, sealed chambers built not only to honor the dead, but to hide them from the living. And in one of these tombs, beneath centuries of silence and sand, archaeologists uncovered a face. A face made of gold. The Lambbeek gold mask is one of the most haunting artifacts ever discovered from the pre-Columbian world. Fashioned entirely from hammered gold, the mask depicts a human-like face, staring out with large, almond-shaped eyes, flared nostrils, and a tightly set mouth. Its expression is unreadable, neither kind nor cruel. It simply watches. This mask was found in the tomb of a high-ranking individual from the Sican culture, a branch of the broader Lambbeek civilization that thrived in northern Peru around 700 to 1350 CE. Alongside the mask were other grave goods, golden headdresses, ceremonial knives, seashells, and sometimes entire skeletons of sacrificed attendants. The burial was elaborate, but the mask, flat, luminous, silent, remained the centerpiece. Its craftsmanship is delicate yet deliberate. Sheets of gold were hammered thin and cut with precision. Tiny holes line the edges, possibly for fastening the mask to a headdress, or perhaps to a mummy's face. But while its physical features are known, its true purpose is not. Was it meant to represent the individual buried beneath it? Or a god they believed in? Some archaeologists suggest it was a symbol of transformation, allowing the dead to cross into the next world wearing a divine face. Others believe it served a more earthly function, a mark of power designed to intimidate even in death. What makes the Lambbeek gold masks so unusual is their recurrence. Dozens have been found in tombs across the region, each similar yet distinct. Different eyes, different proportions, but always golden, always expressionless. Why so many? Why the same haunting stare? Some believe these masks were part of a secret priestly tradition, passed down through generations. A lineage of masked rulers who wore gold not to shine, but to shield themselves, from enemies, from spirits, or from something more unknowable. There are no written records from the Lambbeek. What we know comes only from what they left behind, and what they buried. And the masks, more than anything, seem to whisper that there was more going on in those desert temples than we will likely ever understand. Today, the Lambbeek masks remain some of the finest examples of pre-Columbian metalwork. But they're more than art. They are echoes of forgotten faces. And the longer you look into those golden eyes, the more you begin to wonder, who or what is looking back? The Bactrian gold hoard. In the rugged hills of northern Afghanistan, where the snow touches the dust and the Silk Road once whispered between empires, lies a mound called Tilya Tepe, the Golden Hill. For centuries, no one knew what secrets it held. Then, in 1978, a team of Soviet-Afghan archaeologists uncovered something extraordinary. Beneath the earth were 6 ancient burial chambers, untouched for over 2,000 years. Inside lay the bodies of 5 women and 1 man. But it wasn't the bones that stunned the world. It was the gold. More than 20,000 golden artifacts, necklaces, crowns, earrings, rings, belts, plaques, crafted with exquisite detail. Some pieces were so delicate they could be folded. Others shimmered with turquoise, lapis lazuli, and garnet. One woman, likely a princess, had over 1.5 kilograms of gold on her body alone. But this wasn't just treasure. It was a riddle in metal. The styles were a mix of cultures: Greek, Scythian, Persian, Indian, even Chinese. A Hellenistic coin beside a nomadic dagger. A crown shaped like a tree rising from the head. Buddhist motifs next to steppe warrior designs. This wasn't random. It was something more. Who were these people? They weren't known kings. No written names. No monuments. And yet they held the wealth and artistry of half the known world. Some believe they were Bactrian nobles, elites from a forgotten dynasty between the Seleucid Greeks and the Kushan Empire. Others suggest they were nomadic Saka or Yuezhi, who traveled with gold instead of building cities. But even their death raises questions. Why bury so much gold underground, without any signs of marking or memorial? Was it to protect it? Or was it never meant to be found? The timing of the discovery only deepens the mystery. The Horde was excavated just 1 year before the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. During the chaos that followed, the treasure vanished. For over a decade, it was assumed lost, looted, sold, or destroyed. Then, in 2003, it reappeared, intact, hidden away in the vaults beneath the presidential palace in Kabul. Preserved not by archaeologists, but by museum workers who risked everything to protect it. And yet even today, no one agrees on who the dead were, or why they carried so much of the world's wealth with them into the earth. Was it simply royal burial? Or was this treasure a message? A final act of a people who knew they were fading and chose to be remembered not with words, but with gold? In Tillya Tepe, there were no inscriptions. No stories carved in stone. Just the silence of the steppe and a brilliance buried beneath it. The kind of brilliance that leaves more questions than answers. The Nebra Sky Disc. It began, like many discoveries do, with a mistake. In the year 1999, 2 men with metal detectors were illegally searching a hillside in Saxony-Anhalt, Germany. They were hoping for coins. Maybe an old weapon. What they found instead was a disc, caked in soil, rimmed with corrosion, and unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It was made of bronze. But what captured the world's attention were the inlays, thin sheets of gold, shaped into a sun, a crescent moon, and clusters of stars. Scattered across the surface like constellations frozen in time. One cluster looked unmistakably like the Pleiades. At just 12 inches across, the disc was small, but it held the sky. This object became known as the Nebra Sky Disc, and its discovery would challenge everything we thought we knew about the Bronze Age in Europe. Radiocarbon dating of associated items, swords, axes, and armbands, placed it around 1600 BC. That's older than the pyramids of Giza, and far older than most written records in Europe. Yet this disc seemed to display a working knowledge of astronomy. Not just mythology, but measurement. Some researchers believe the disc was used as a calendrical tool, a portable star chart that helped ancient peoples track solar and lunar cycles, or even determine the timing of planting and harvesting. The golden arcs on either side, for instance, seem to represent the angle of the sun's path at solstices, a level of precision thought impossible for that time and place. But here's where it gets stranger. The disc doesn't just show one design. It was modified over time, gold elements were added, removed, repositioned. What began as a pure sky map was later fitted with a golden arc at the bottom, interpreted by some as a solar bark, a celestial boat from mythology. Was the disc evolving with its owner's beliefs? Or was it passing through different hands, each adding meaning? No one knows who made it. The people of Central Europe during that era had no written language and left behind no monuments. Yet they created a disc that combined art, science, and spirituality into a single object, an object so precise that modern astronomers have confirmed its astronomical accuracy. And yet it ended up buried in the earth, hidden alongside weapons and ornaments, as if it had outlived its purpose or had become too powerful to remain above ground. Today, the Nebra Sky Disc rests in a museum, shielded behind glass, studied by scholars across the world. But the more we learn about it, the more questions emerge. Was it truly a scientific instrument? A sacred relic? Or a window into a sky no longer seen? Whatever its purpose, one thing remains clear. Long before Europe built observatories or mapped the heavens, someone was already watching the stars and writing their story in gold. The Golden Lyre of Uar. In the southern deserts of modern-day Iraq, beneath layers of sand and time, lies the ancient city of Ur, once a shining center of Sumerian civilization. Nearly 5,000 years ago, its people built ziggurats, traded across empires, and buried their dead with reverence, wealth, and music. In the 1920s, British archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley excavated the Royal Cemetery of Ur. What he found would redefine our understanding of the ancient world. Hundreds of tombs filled with precious metals, jewelry, weapons, and something else. A musical instrument. Among the graves, one burial stood out. It belonged to a noblewoman, possibly a queen or high priestess, who was buried alongside multiple attendants, all laid in rows, as if part of a silent procession. Near her body rested a harp-shaped object, now known as the Golden Lyre of Uar. The lyre itself was crafted from wood, now long decayed, but its front panel was sheathed in gold, forming the body of a bull with a human-like beard. Its horns curled upward, its face wide-eyed and alert. The beard was inlaid with lapis lazuli, a stone rarer than gold in that time. It is one of the oldest stringed instruments ever discovered. The purpose of this lyre remains open to interpretation. Was it used in rituals? Funerals? Royal ceremonies? The presence of musicians buried alongside royalty suggests that music held a sacred role, not just in life, but in the journey beyond it. And yet, the lyre's presence raises unsettling questions. Why were the musicians buried alive? Some scholars believe the attendants, including the one holding the lyre, drank poison in ritual sacrifice. Others think they were killed to accompany their ruler into the afterlife. Either way, the scene is chilling, a golden instrument, silenced mid-note, resting among the dead. The lyre itself was reconstructed in modern times based on fragments and imprints left in the soil. Today, replicas sit in museums in Baghdad and London. But the original, once stored in Iraq's National Museum, was heavily damaged during the 2003 invasion. Its fate hangs in uncertainty, like the final note of a forgotten song. Still, the design lingers. A bull-headed lyre, regal and quiet, forged in gold not for performance, but for permanence. What melodies did it once carry? What stories did it accompany as it echoed through temple halls or drifted into tombs? We may never know the sound of those ancient strings, but their silence tells its own kind of story, a story of beauty, of death, and of a people who believed music could reach beyond this world. In a civilization where kings became gods and stars were charted in clay, even a lyre, quiet, golden, and buried, could speak across the centuries. If we're willing to listen. The Golden Sun Disc of Maktazuma. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in Tenochtitlan in 1519, they stepped into a world unlike any they had seen. Towering pyramids, floating gardens, markets with thousands of traders, and streets paved with obsidian. But above all else, they were struck by gold, shining everywhere, woven into the empire's very identity. At the center of this golden empire stood a man, Maktazuma II, ruler of the Aztecs. And among his most sacred possessions was an object that has since vanished, a golden disc said to represent the sun itself. Known today as the Golden Sun Disc of Maktazuma, this object remains one of the most tantalizing lost treasures of the ancient world. Descriptions from early Spanish chroniclers tell of a large circular piece, crafted from pure gold, carefully hammered and polished to gleam like the rising sun. Some claimed it was 6 to 8 feet across. Others believed it was adorned with sacred glyphs and symbols. All agreed, it was more than art. It was divine. To the Aztecs, the sun wasn't just a celestial body. It was a god, Huitzilopochtli, the warrior sun who required blood to rise each day. The disc wasn't a symbol of power, it was the center of power. Hung in the great temple precinct, it watched over the capital like the eye of heaven itself. Then came conquest. When Hernán Cortés and his men began dismantling Tenochtitlan, the gold was looted, melted, or vanished. The disc was taken down, according to some records, and either sent back to Spain as tribute, or lost during La Noche Triste, the desperate retreat of Spanish forces from the city, when treasure was dropped into the lake and streets. To this day, no physical trace of the Golden Sun Disc has ever been recovered. If it survived, it was likely melted, its divine image destroyed for currency. But some believe it's still out there, hidden, buried, or preserved in secret by those who refuse to let the last sun fall. Its mystery lies not just in its disappearance, but in what it represented. A civilization that saw the world in cycles of time and sacrifice. A ruler who held the sun in his temple. And an empire that, in less than 2 years, was reduced to ashes. Was the golden disc merely a symbol? Or was it something more? An object of real spiritual power, lost to time like the empire that forged it? In the end, what remains is not the gold, but the silence it left behind. A hole in history, shaped like the sun. From the high Andes to the deserts of Mesopotamia, from Bronze Age Europe to the sacred halls of Tenochtitlan, gold has carried more than wealth. It's carried meaning. And as we've seen, some of that meaning is still hidden. Still silent. Still waiting. These 7 artifacts survive not because we understand them, but because we don't. And maybe that's why they matter.